Kang Do-yeon had never wanted to be anyone special. He was an engineer, nothing more. He fixed broken machines, repaired damaged systems, and made sure the ship kept running. That was his job aboard the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge, and he was good at it. He did not dream of glory or adventure. He dreamed of finishing his work and going home to Earth. The year was 2347, and humanity had joined the Galactic Assembly 15 years ago. 47 species worked together in this great coalition, sharing technology and keeping peace across the stars. Earth was a small member, still new and still learning. Most aliens saw humans as curious creatures, clever but unimportant. Do-yeon did not mind this. He preferred to stay invisible, but the universe had other plans for him. The Horizons. Edge had traveled to the edge of Valorian space for important peace talks. The Valorian Empire was ancient and powerful, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Their ships were beautiful, their cities magnificent, and their people proud. But something was wrong with them. Everyone knew it, though few spoke of it openly. The Valorians were dying. A strange plague had spread through their population 50 years ago. It did not kill them quickly. Instead, it took away their ability to have children. Their birth rates dropped to almost nothing. Their great empire, which had once ruled half the galaxy, was now fading like a candle in the wind. They had joined the peace talks, hoping to find allies, or perhaps something more. Do-yeon did not attend the formal meetings. He was too low in rank for such things. But he was invited to the grand banquet on the final night, along with every other crew member. It was a gesture of respect from the Valorians, or so he was told. The banquet hall was breathtaking. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Long tables held food from 100 worlds. Music played softly, strange and beautiful melodies that made Do-yeon feel both sad and hopeful at the same time. He stood near the back of the room, holding a drink he had not tasted, watching the important people talk and laugh. He felt out of place in his borrowed formal uniform. He wanted to return to the engine room where everything made sense. Then he saw her. Princess Lirel of the Valorian Empire walked through the crowd, like light moving through water. She was tall and graceful, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were violet, deep and ancient, holding secrets Do-yeon could not begin to guess. Her white hair floated around her shoulders as if gravity was merely a suggestion. She was the most beautiful being he had ever seen, and also the most frightening. Their eyes met across the room. Do-yeon looked away quickly, embarrassed. He was nobody. She was royalty. There was no reason for her to notice him, but she walked toward him anyway. The crowd parted for her like waves before a ship. Conversation stopped. Every eye in the room turned to watch. Do-yeon's heart began to pound. He looked around, hoping she was walking toward someone behind him. There was no one. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the tiny patterns of light that moved beneath her silver skin. Up close, she seemed almost human, except for those impossible eyes and that otherworldly glow. "You are Kang Do-yeon," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Highness," he managed to say. His voice sounded weak and foolish to his own ears. "I have studied your file," she continued. "You helped the refugee ships from the broken moons. You gave them food from your own supplies. You repaired their engines without asking for payment." Do-yeon blinked. "That was 3 years ago. How do you know about that?" "I know many things about you, Kang Do-yeon," she smiled, but there was something sad in it. "I know you are kind. I know you are humble. I know you do not seek power or glory. These are rare qualities in any species." Before Do-yeon could respond, Lirel turned to face the entire room. Her voice rang out clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the banquet hall. "Honored guests of the Galactic Assembly, I have an announcement." The room fell completely silent. Even the music stopped. "For 50 years, my people have searched for a cure to the plague that kills us slowly. We have failed. Our scientists, the greatest in the galaxy, could not save us. But we have found another way." She paused, and her eyes found Do-yeon again. "Human DNA is compatible with Valorian genetics. Your species can give us children. Your species can save us." Whispers exploded through the crowd. Doyan felt the floor tilt beneath his feet. This could not be happening. Therefore, Liril continued, in accordance with the ancient laws of my people, I formally request the hand of Kong Doyan, engineer of Earth, in marriage. I ask him to become my husband and the father of a new generation of Elorians. The silence that followed was deafening. Doyan laughed. He could not help it. It burst out of him, nervous and disbelieving. I am sorry, Your Highness, but there must be a translation error. You cannot be serious. Liril's expression did not change. There is no error. I am completely serious. But I am nobody. I fix engines. I am not royalty. I am not special. You do not even know me. I know enough. She stepped closer, and her voice dropped, so only he could hear. My people are dying, Doyan. Every year, there are fewer of us. Every year, we lose more of what we were. I have watched my civilization crumble since I was a child. I have buried friends who died without children to remember them. Her violet eyes were bright with unshed tears. You are not just a suitor to me. You are not just a political arrangement. You are my people's last hope. You are the only chance we have. Doyan's throat felt tight. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to run back to his engine room and pretend this night had never happened. But he looked into her eyes and saw something that stopped him. He saw desperation. He saw grief. He saw a princess who had set aside her pride to beg a stranger for help. I need time to think, he whispered. Of course, she stepped back and bowed her head slightly. Take all the time you need. But please remember, Kong Doyan, while you think, my people continue to die. She turned and walked away, leaving him alone in the center of the room, surrounded by hundreds of staring eyes. The weight of a dying civilization had just been placed on his shoulders, and he had no idea what to do with it. Somewhere in the crowd, a human diplomat was already calling Earth. The galaxy was about to change, and an ordinary engineer stood at the center of it all. 3 days had passed since the banquet, and Doyan had not slept well for any of them. The news had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every screen on every world showed his face. Every news channel discussed the human proposal. He had become famous overnight, and he hated every moment of it. The Valorian flagship Eternal Dawn floated beside the horizon's edge, a massive ship of white metal and flowing curves. It looked like a sculpture made by gods. Doyan had been invited aboard to meet with Princess Liril privately, away from the cameras and the politicians. He walked through corridors of pale crystal, escorted by silent Valorian guards. Everything about the ship felt ancient and sorrowful, like a beautiful tomb. The lights were dim. The air smelled faintly of flowers he could not name. Liril waited for him in a small garden at the heart of the ship. Real plants grew here, purple and silver leaves reaching toward an artificial sun. She sat on a stone bench, wearing simple clothes instead of her royal gown. Without her formal appearance, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Thank you for coming, she said as he approached. I have a choice, Doyan asked. He did not mean to sound bitter, but the words came out that way. You always have a choice. That is why I chose you. She gestured to the bench beside her. Please, sit. I want to explain myself properly. Doyan sat, keeping a careful distance between them. Explain then, why me? There are billions of humans. Surely someone more important, more willing. I did not want someone important. Liril looked at the purple flowers as she spoke. I studied humans for 7 years, Doyan. I read thousands of files, watched countless recordings. Your species is fascinating. You are chaotic and contradictory. You can be cruel beyond measure, yet kind beyond reason. She turned to face him. I needed someone who would not be corrupted by power, someone who helped others without expecting reward, someone who would see my people as people, not as tools or stepping stones. Your file showed me who you really are. My file showed you an engineer who once fixed some refugee ships. Your file showed me a man who gave half his food rations to strangers. A man who worked through the night to save lives when he could have slept. A man who never asked for recognition. Her voice softened. That man is rare, Doyan. In any species, Doyen did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as special. He had simply done what seemed right. "What about love?" he asked quietly. "Marriage should be about love, not politics." Lirel smiled sadly. "In my world, princesses do not marry for love. We marry for duty, for alliance, for survival. Love is a luxury I have never been allowed." She paused. "But I do not expect you to love me. I only ask for your help. If love comes later, it would be a gift I did not deserve." Before Doyen could respond, his communicator buzzed. A familiar voice came through, sharp and worried. "Doyen, are you there?" "It is Yuna." His younger sister. He had almost forgotten that she was traveling from Earth to meet him. Bayuna was a xenobiologist, brilliant and fierce. She had never been afraid of anything in her life. "I am here," he answered. "Where are you?" "I am on the Eternal Dawn. They let me aboard to see you. But listen, I found something. Something important. Meet me in the medical bay. Come alone if you can." Doyen looked at Lirel. "My sister. She says she found something." Lirel's expression flickered with concern. "Go to her. We can talk more later." He found Yuna in a quiet corner of the ship's medical research center, surrounded by floating screens filled with genetic data. She looked exhausted, her dark hair messy, and her eyes red from lack of sleep. But there was fire in those eyes, the same fire she had when she solved a puzzle. "Close the door," she said as he entered. "What is wrong?" Yuna pulled up a complex diagram on the largest screen. "I have been studying the Valorian plague. They gave me access to their medical records as a gesture of goodwill. Doyen, this plague is not natural." His blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean someone made it. Look at this." She pointed to a section of the genetic code. "This pattern does not occur in nature. It is too precise, too targeted. Someone engineered a disease specifically designed to make Valorians infertile. Someone wanted them to die out." Doyen stared at the screen, his mind racing. Who would do such a thing? Why? I do not know yet. The Valorian Empire had many enemies when they were powerful. Any of them could have done this. Yuna grabbed his arm. "But listen to me, brother. If you marry Princess Lyril, you become the solution to this plague. You become the one thing standing between the Valorians and extinction. And whoever created this plague will not want a solution to exist." Her grip tightened. "Someone wanted the Valorians to die. If you marry her, they will want you dead too." The weight of her words settled on Doyen like a stone. He had thought he was simply being asked to make a difficult personal choice. Now he understood that he was walking into something far more dangerous. "Does Princess Lyril know about this?" he asked. "I do not think so. Their scientists believed the plague was natural. They never looked for evidence of tampering because they never imagined such cruelty was possible." Yuna shook her head. "The Valorians are proud. They think of themselves as the greatest civilization in the galaxy. It never occurred to them that someone could attack them this way." Doyen thought about Lyril sitting alone in her garden, carrying the weight of her dying people. He thought about the empty nurseries and the aging population. He thought about a princess who had set aside her pride to ask a stranger for help. Someone had tried to murder an entire civilization. Someone had almost succeeded. "We need to tell her," Doyen said. "She deserves to know the truth." "Are you sure?" "If she knows, she might become even more desperate. She might pressure you harder to accept. She deserves to know," he repeated. "Whatever choice I make, it should be based on truth, not lies." Yuna studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "You have already decided, have you not? You are going to help them." Doyen did not answer. He was not sure himself, but he knew one thing with certainty. Someone had committed a terrible crime against the Valorian people, and that crime was still being hidden. Whatever happened next, he would not let the truth stay buried. He walked back toward the garden, carrying news that would change everything. Behind him, Yuna began copying the evidence onto a secure device. The mystery of the plague had a new investigator. She would not rest until she found answers. Villar Prime was beautiful and broken. Doyen stood on a balcony of the royal palace, looking out at a city of crystal towers and silver bridges. The architecture was magnificent, but the streets below were nearly empty, where millions should have walked. Only thousands remained. He had agreed to visit the Valorian homeworld before making his final decision. He told himself he needed to understand what he would be committing to. In truth, part of him already knew what he would choose. He simply needed to see it with his own eyes. Princess Lyral had taken the news of the engineered plague with surprising calm. Her violet eyes had darkened, her hands had trembled slightly, but she had not cried. She had simply said, "Then we have enemies we did not know about. All the more reason to survive." Her strength amazed him. She carried grief that would have crushed most people, yet she stood tall and moved forward. Doyan found himself respecting her more each day. A human intelligence officer named Shin Taeyong had been assigned to protect Doyan during his visit. Taeyong was tall and quiet, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He moved like a shadow, always present, but never intrusive. Doyan did not like needing a bodyguard, but he understood the necessity. "The city used to be full of children," Lyral said, joining him on the balcony. "When I was young, their laughter echoed through these streets every morning. Now there are no children left to laugh." Doyan watched an elderly Valorian couple walk slowly across a distant bridge. They held hands as if holding on to each other was all they had left. "How long?" He asked. "How long until ... double quotes, until we are gone completely." Lyral's voice was steady, though the words must have cut deep. "Perhaps 50 years. Perhaps less. Every year, more of us die than are born. Eventually, there will be no one left to remember what we were. Your people built an empire that spanned half the galaxy. They created art and science beyond anything humanity has achieved. That cannot simply disappear. Everything disappears eventually." Lyral turned to face him. "But perhaps not yet. Perhaps you can give us time to find another way." That afternoon, she took him to the Garden of Ancestors. It was a vast space at the heart of the city, filled with crystal monuments and flowering trees. Each monument honored a Valorian who had died. There were so many that they stretched to the horizon like a frozen forest. "I come here often," Lyral admitted as they walked among the crystals. "It reminds me why I cannot give up. Each of these monuments represents someone who lived, who loved, who dreamed. I refuse to let their stories end in silence." She stopped before a small monument near the garden center. "My mother," she said softly. "She died when I was 12. The plague had weakened her body over many years. In the end, she simply fell asleep and did not wake up." Doyan did not know what to say. He reached out and gently touched her arm. It was a small gesture, but she seemed grateful for it. "I was not always kind," Lyral continued. "When I was young, I was proud and cruel. I looked down on other species. I believed Valorians were superior to everyone else." Now she smiled bitterly. "The universe has a way of teaching humility. Watching my people die taught me that pride is worthless. Only compassion matters in the end. You have changed. I had no choice but to change. The person I was could not save anyone. I had to become someone new." She looked at him with those deep, violet eyes. "You helped me understand that kindness is not weakness. Your file showed me what true strength looks like." Before Doyan could respond, Taeyong appeared beside them, his face tense. "We need to move," he said urgently. Now, the explosion came before Doyan could react. A crystal monument nearby shattered into 1,000 pieces, and the shockwave threw him to the ground. His ears rang. His vision blurred. Through the chaos, he saw figures in dark armor emerging from behind the larger monuments. Taeyong was already moving, pulling Doyan to his feet while firing his weapon at the attackers. Lyral had drawn a blade from somewhere, her royal composure replaced by fierce determination. "Assassins," Taeyong shouted. "At least 8 of them. We need to reach the palace." They ran through the garden as energy blasts tore through the air around them. Monuments exploded. Ancient trees caught fire. The beautiful Garden of Ancestors became a battlefield. Doyan's mind raced even as his body fled. He was not a fighter. He had no weapons, no combat training, but he noticed things. The pattern of the explosions, the way the attackers moved, they were herding them toward a specific path, away from the palace, toward an isolated section of the garden. "Stop," he shouted. "It is a trap. They want us to go that way." Taeyang hesitated for only a second before trusting him. They changed direction, crashing through a thick hedge instead of following the clear path. The attackers had not expected this. Their formation broke as they scrambled to adjust. A blast caught Taeyang in the shoulder. He fell hard, his weapon skidding away. Doyan grabbed him, trying to drag him forward. But Taeyang was too heavy. Lyral stepped in front of them both, her blade flashing in the sunlight. Two attackers rushed at her, and she moved like water, her blade finding gaps in their armor. They fell, and she did not pause. Turning to face the next threat, palace guards finally arrived, swarming into the garden with weapons blazing. The remaining assassins retreated. Disappearing into the chaos as quickly as they had appeared, Doyan knelt beside Taeyang, pressing his hands against the wound to slow the bleeding. Medics were already running toward them. "He saved us," Taeyang managed to say through gritted teeth. "How did you know about the trap?" "I noticed the pattern." Engineers notice patterns. Doyan tried to smile, but his hands were shaking. "It is what we do." Later, in the safety of the palace, Admiral Gorath stood before them with fury in his eyes. He was Lyral's uncle, a military commander who had opposed the Union from the beginning. "This attack proves the danger of involving humans in our affairs," he declared. "We should never have brought outsiders into our problems." "This attack proves someone wants to stop the Union," Lyral responded coldly. "Someone fears what we might become together." Una, who had arrived with new evidence from her research, spoke up. "The attack was too coordinated, too well-funded for ordinary criminals. Someone within the Galactic Assembly itself is behind this. The same people who created the plague are trying to finish what they started." Doyan looked at Lyral. She was wounded, a cut across her arm from a piece of shattered crystal. But she stood straight, unbowed, unbroken. "Did you know?" he asked her quietly. "Did you know marrying me would make me a target?" She met his eyes without flinching. "Yes, I knew. But I believed you were strong enough to survive. I still believe that. You should have told me. Would you have listened? Or would you have run away before you understood what was at stake?" He wanted to be angry. He wanted to feel betrayed. But when he looked at her, all he saw was a woman fighting desperately to save her people. She had taken a risk because she had no other choice. "If someone is willing to kill to stop this Union dough," Jones said slowly, "then maybe it is exactly what the galaxy needs." Lyral's eyes widened. "Does that means I am done running? I came here as an engineer who fixes broken things." "Well, something in this galaxy is very broken, and I intend to help fix it." He took her hand, ignoring the gasps from the watching guards and politicians. "I will stand beside you, Lyral. Whatever comes next, we face it together." For the first time since he had met her, Princess Lyral smiled with genuine hope. Nexus Prime was the heart of the Galactic Assembly, a space station the size of a small moon where representatives from 47 species gathered to govern the galaxy. Today, it was the most watched location in known space. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds had tuned in to witness the formal betrothal ceremony between Princess Lyral of the Valorian Empire and Kong Do-Yoon of Earth. Do-Yoon stood in a preparation room, staring at himself in a mirror. He wore formal clothes designed by both human and Valorian tailors, a blend of two cultures that somehow worked together. He looked like a stranger to himself. "You look terrified," said a voice behind him. He turned to find Choi Minji, human journalist who had been covering the story since the beginning. She was small and sharp-eyed, with a reputation for asking uncomfortable questions. "I am terrified," Doyan admitted. "In 1 hour, I will stand before the entire galaxy and commit to something that will change my life forever." "Terror seems appropriate." Minji smiled slightly. "For what it is worth, most of Earth is proud of you. They see an ordinary man doing an extraordinary thing. That gives people hope. I am just an engineer." That is exactly why they love you. She adjusted her recording device. One question before the ceremony. Why are you really doing this? Not the political reasons. Not the duty. Why? Doyen thought about it for a long moment. Because I met a woman who carries the weight of a dying civilization on her shoulders, and she never breaks. Because I saw a plague that someone designed to murder billions, and I cannot walk away from that. Because I am an engineer, and when something is broken, I fix it. He paused. And because I think I am starting to care about her. Not as a princess, as a person. Mingy nodded slowly. That is a good answer. Maybe the best one I have heard. The ceremony hall was vast and magnificent, designed to humble visitors with its scale. Representatives from every species in the assembly filled the curved seats, a rainbow of shapes and colors and sizes. Floating cameras broadcast every moment to waiting audiences across the stars. Doyan walked down the central aisle, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. He saw Ambassador Park Ji-woo in the human section, her face carefully neutral, but her eyes warm with encouragement. He saw Yuna seated nearby, her expression fierce and protective. Taeyong stood in the shadows along the wall, his wounded shoulder still bandaged. Watching for any sign of danger at the far end of the hall, Lyral waited on a raised platform. She wore white and silver, her hair arranged in an elaborate style that probably had centuries of tradition behind it. But when she saw Doyin approaching, her formal mask cracked slightly, and something like relief flickered across her face. He climbed the steps to stand beside her. Up close, he could see that her hands were trembling slightly, hidden by the folds of her dress. She was as nervous as he was. I thought you might not come, she whispered. I made a promise, he whispered back. Engineers do not break promises. The High Chancellor of the Assembly, a being of crystalline structure whose species Doyan could not name, began the formal proceedings. Words were spoken in multiple languages, rituals observed from both Valorian and human traditions. It was beautiful and exhausting and seemed to last forever. Then came the moment for personal statements. Lyral spoke first, her voice clear and strong, thanking the Assembly for witnessing their union and promising to work toward peace and cooperation. It was a perfect political speech, polished and careful. When Doyen's turn came, he had prepared remarks as well. But looking out at the vast hall, at the countless faces watching him, he found that his prepared words felt hollow. He set them aside. I had a speech, he said into the sudden silence, but I think I will just speak honestly instead. He saw Ambassador Park Ji-woo tense with worry. Improvisation was dangerous in politics, but he continued anyway. I am not a hero. I want to make that clear. I am an engineer. I fix things. I have no great wisdom, no special powers, no ancient bloodline. 6 months ago, I was replacing water filters on a diplomatic ship, and I was happy doing it. A few scattered laughs rippled through the human section. When Princess Lyral asked me to marry her, I thought it was a joke. Then I thought it was a mistake. Then I thought it was a trap. I spent weeks looking for reasons to say no. He glanced at Lyral, who was watching him with wide eyes. But then I visited Velar Prime. I saw the empty streets where children used to play. I saw the Garden of Ancestors filled with monuments to the dead. I saw a civilization that built wonders beyond imagination, dying slowly because someone wanted them gone. His voice grew stronger, and I realized something. This is not about politics or alliances or genetic compatibility. This is about whether we, as a galaxy, will stand by and watch an entire people disappear. This is about whether we believe that every civilization, every culture, every life is worth fighting for. He turned to face the Assembly directly. I am not special. I am just one human who decided to help. But that is what humans do. We see broken things and we try to fix them. We see suffering and we try to ease it. We are not the strongest species in this galaxy, or the oldest, or the wisest. But we show up, try. And sometimes that is enough. The hall was absolutely silent. Doyen felt his heart pounding, wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. Then, slowly, the human section began to applaud. The sound spread, picked up by other species, till the entire hall was filled with thunder. Ambassador Park Ji-woo was wiping her eyes. Yuna was grinning like she had never grinned before. Even Taeyong, in the shadows, was nodding with something like respect. But the moment was shattered by the sound of weapons fire. Doors burst open on multiple levels. Armed figures in dark armor poured into the hall, firing at the ceiling to create panic. The crowd screamed and fled in all directions. At the center of it all stood Counselor Vreth, a reptilian politician Doyon had barely noticed before. Now he stood at the head of the attackers, his scaled face twisted with hatred. "This union is an abomination," Vreth shouted, his voice amplified to fill the hall. "The Valorians were meant to die. Their time is over. We will not allow them to pollute the galaxy with hybrid spawn." So this was the enemy. The one who had created the plague. The one who had tried to murder Doyon in the Garden of Ancestors. Yuna's research had identified him. They had not expected him to act so publicly. Guards rushed to protect the platform, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. Vreth's forces pushed forward, cutting through the chaos. Doyon's mind raced. He was not a fighter. He could not defeat armed soldiers. But he was an engineer, and engineers understood systems. "Laurel," he said quickly, "does this station use standard assembly power distribution?" She blinked at the strange question. "Yes." "Why?" "And the gravity generators are in the floor panels." "Yes." "I saw the schematics when I was reviewing the station's systems." "Doyon, what are you planning?" Instead of answering, he ran to a maintenance panel near the back of the platform. His hands moved automatically, decades of technical training guiding him. He ripped open the panel, found the connections he needed, and began rewiring. A guard fell near him, wounded by enemy fire. The attackers were getting closer. He heard Lyril shouting commands, heard the clash of weapons, but he did not look up. He had to focus. 3 wires crossed. A bypass here. A redirect there. The gravity in the ceremony hall shifted suddenly, dropping to near zero in the central area where Vreth's forces were concentrated. The attackers screamed as they floated helplessly upward, unable to control their movements. Their weapons drifted from their hands. Doyon adjusted the field carefully, keeping normal gravity around the edges where innocent people were still fleeing. The attackers tumbled through the air like leaves in a storm. Station security finally arrived in force, easily capturing the helpless floating enemies. Vreth himself was pulled down and restrained, still screaming about abominations and genetic purity. Admiral Goreth had fought his way to the platform during the chaos. He was wounded, silver blood flowing from a gash on his forehead. But he had positioned himself between Lyril and the attackers. The uncle who had opposed the Union had chosen his family over his prejudice when it mattered most. "You saved us," Lyril said to Doyon, her voice shaking with relief and exhaustion. "You stopped them without killing anyone." "Engineers do not like waste," Doyon replied. His hands were trembling. "Death is wasteful." She laughed, a sound that was half sob. Then she pulled him close and held him tight. Not caring that the cameras were still recording, not caring that the entire galaxy was watching. "You did not run," she whispered. "Engineers do not run from broken things," he answered. "We stay and fix them."
Ow.
In the aftermath, as medics treated the wounded and security dragged the conspirators away, Ambassador Park Ji-woo approached them with tears streaming down her face. "That speech," she said to Doyon, "that impossible, unplanned, perfect speech. Do you know what you have done? Made a mess of diplomatic protocol? You have changed everything. Humans across the galaxy are standing taller tonight because of you. You reminded them of who we are at our best." She shook her head in wonder. An engineer from a diplomatic ship. Who would have believed it? Doyon looked at Lyril, at her silver hair now tangled, and her white dress stained with dust from the battle. She looked back at him with those violet eyes, and for the first time, he saw something new in them. Hope. Real hope. And maybe something more.
Ow!
"We are not finished yet," he said. "The ceremony was interrupted. We still need to complete it. After all this, you still want to continue? I made a promise." He smiled slightly. "And besides, I hate leaving work unfinished. An hour later, before a smaller but no less important audience, the ceremony was completed. Doyen placed his hand over Liral's heart in the Valorian tradition. She placed her hand over his in the human tradition. Words were spoken, vows were exchanged, and two civilizations were joined together. Somewhere out in the galaxy, the rest of humanity was watching. And for the first time in their short history among the stars, they did not feel small. 1 year had passed since the ceremony on Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one had predicted. Doyen stood on the same balcony, where he had first looked out at the dying city of Villar Prime, but the view was different now. The streets below were no longer empty. People walked and talked and laughed. Not as many as in the old days, perhaps, but more than there had been in decades. And among them, for the first time in 50 years, there were children. The research breakthrough had come 3 months after the wedding. Una and her team of human and Valorian scientists had worked day and night, combining knowledge from both species. They had found a way to stabilize the genetic combination, to make healthy children possible. The first Valorian human child had been born 2 months later. A little girl with her mother's silver hair and her father's dark eyes. She was not alone. Across Villar Prime, in medical centers built with joint funding from Earth and the Empire, new lives were beginning. The plague had not been cured, but it had been defeated. The Valorians would survive. Liral joined him on the balcony, moving carefully. She was still recovering from the birth of their own daughter, who was sleeping in a cradle inside their chambers. They had named her Hope in the human tradition, with a Valorian middle name that translated roughly to New Dawn. "You are thinking deep thoughts again," Liral said, slipping her hand into his. "I can always tell. I am thinking about how strange life is." Doyen squeezed her hand gently. 1 year ago, I was an engineer who wanted nothing more than to finish my work and go home. Now I am a prince, a father, and apparently some kind of symbol for human potential. Does it bother you? The fame. Sometimes. I still do not feel like I deserve it. I was just in the right place at the right time. Laurel turned to face him, her violet eyes warm with affection. Over the past year, what had begun as respect and partnership had grown into something deeper. They had learned each other's habits and fears, had argued and reconciled, had supported each other through difficult days. Love had not been promised, but love had come anyway. "You are wrong, you know," she said. "It was not luck that made you special. It was choice. When everyone else would have run away, you chose to stay. When everyone else would have taken the easy path, you chose the hard one. That is not luck. That is character." He smiled at her, the smile he only showed to her. "When did you become so wise?" "I married a good man. He taught me things." Inside the chamber, baby Hope made a small sound. They both turned, the instinct of new parents kicking in, but the sound faded back into peaceful sleep. "Una sent a message this morning," Doyen said. "The Research Institute is ready to open. She wants us to attend the ceremony." The institute had been Doyen's idea. A joint facility for human and Valorian scientists to work together, sharing knowledge and developing new technologies. It would be named the Bridge Institute, representing the connection between their peoples. Una had been appointed as its first director. She had grown from a worried sister into one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy. The discovery of the plague's artificial origin had been hers, and the breakthrough that saved the Valorian people had been built on her work. She had earned every honor that had come to her. "We should go," Liral agreed. "Your sister deserves to see us there. She will make a speech. A long one. With many technical words. I will pretend to understand all of them." They both laughed, the easy laughter of people who had been through darkness together and come out into light. The ceremony was held 3 days later. In a new building that combined human and Valorian architecture. It was beautiful, all flowing curves and crystal panels, but also practical and functional. An engineer had helped design it, after all. Why UNA stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered crowd. Humans and Valorians sat together in the audience, something that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. Ambassador Park Ji-woo was there, now promoted to head of all human diplomatic efforts in Valorian space. Taeyong was there too. fully healed and now leading the unified security division that protected human interests across the galaxy. Admiral Goroth sat in the front row. The scars from his wounds during the Nexus Prime attack had healed, but he had changed in other ways. He had publicly apologized for his opposition to the Union, and he had become one of its strongest supporters. Redemption, it seemed, was possible even for old soldiers set in their ways. This institute represents something new, Eunice said in her speech. Not human science or Valorian science, but something that belongs to both of us. Something that neither species could have created alone. She paused, looking at her brother in the audience. 1 year ago, my brother taught the galaxy a lesson. He showed us that courage does not require strength, that heroism does not require special powers. He showed us that one ordinary person, making one brave choice, can change everything. The audience applauded. Doyan felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. He had never grown comfortable with praise. Today we build on that lesson, Yuna continued. We create a place where the best of both our peoples can work together, dream together, discover together. The plague that nearly destroyed the Valorians was created by hatred and fear. This institute will be built on hope and cooperation. That is how we defeat darkness, not with weapons, but with understanding. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Food from both worlds, music from both traditions, people from both species mingling and talking. It was chaotic and imperfect and wonderful. Doyen found a quiet corner and watched it all unfold. Lyril found him there, as she always did. You are hiding, she accused gently. I'm observing. There is a difference, is there? Before he could answer, Minji, the journalist, appeared with her ever-present recording device. She had become something of a friend over the past year, covering the ongoing story of human-Valorian relations with fairness and insight. Prince Doyan, one question for the viewers at home? He sighed. One question. Looking back at everything that has happened, do you have any regrets? It was a simple question with a complicated answer. Doyan thought about the fear and the danger and the moments when he had wanted to run away. He thought about the weight of responsibility that he had never asked for. He thought about the times when everything had seemed impossible. Then he looked at Lyril, the woman who had become his partner and his love. He thought about Baby Hope, who represented the future of two peoples joined together. He thought about all the new children being born across Velar Prime, each one a victory over hatred.